Nintendo Games! Difficult choices that spawn hasty decisions. Decisions that lead to desperate actions. And it's these actions that could either lead to devastating consequences or to your sweet and glorious victory. Turn-based strategy games have always been in my wheelhouse. Ever since I started playing chess at a very early age, I fell in love with games like Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, Advance Wars. So when I saw Into the Breach get a surprise announcement in the last Nintendo Indies presentation, I was immediately sold. Not only is more of this genre obviously welcome to the ever-growing giant library of the Switch, but I've also heard rumblings that this game was actually pretty well received when it released on the PC earlier this year. So I've played roughly around 20 hours or so, and while I'm still having a lot of fun with it, I feel like I've played enough where I can safely give an appropriate review. Into the Breach is set in a dystopian future. That's a cool word, right? Yeah, you know it is. Where giant Godzilla-sized bug monsters have emerged from the Earth's underground. Can you tell I'm reading? The only defense Earth has is a team of 3 pilots who are also time travelers, right? We'll get to that later. With likewise giant-sized mechs. These pilots come in 2 classes, and 2 flavors. Let's say regular and hero flavor. The hero pilots have special skills. Some let you move after attacking, for example. Some have better defense. The game doesn't really explain the pilot's story or where they came from, although some of them actually look pretty cool. Some of them may not even be human. Anyways, if you're looking for an overall plot, there really isn't much to go on here. You just have to basically stop the invasion. I would have liked to see a little more cohesiveness or background to the characters or enemies, but from what the game is trying to achieve, the story aspects aren't really that important, seeing as the gameplay mechanics lend itself well to a vague plot. Into the Breach is pretty great to look at. The pixel art graphics, they lend themselves well to a game that clearly it's drawn its inspiration from strategy games like the Game Boy Advance era. And there certainly is a definite charm and uniqueness with the combination of the styled look and the isometric perspective that you really haven't seen much in any other games. But other than that, there's not a whole lot going on with this game, graphically speaking. From its somber post-apocalyptic tones to its relaxing melodic beats, the soundtrack of Into the Breach is better quality than I expected from a game of its caliber. I was really feeling like Age of Empire 2 and StarCraft vibes from the soundtrack, and that's saying a lot, especially because the soundtrack for the entire game was made by one guy, Ben Prunty. Well, hats off to you, Ben. You did good. The game also has excellent sound effects. Like, seriously, they are incredibly satisfying at various times throughout the game. So kudos to the sound effect department as well. They did a great job. So I feel like the gameplay is where this game absolutely shines. The battles take place on islands separated into maps. You fight these battles on tile grids like you would any other turn-based strategy game. Complete each level's objectives to claim that part of the map. Sometimes you have to kill all the enemies, sometimes you have to protect a building. By completing objectives, you can eventually beat the boss of the island and take it back for humanity. All these objectives and bosses are randomly generated, which I feel is incredibly dynamic, and I feel it really is a strength, but also a curse to this game. There's just a lot of variables to this setup, and as I said before, you can only command 3 mechs at a time. Each of them belongs to a squad that are meant to complement each other. Some squads are focused on disabling enemies, others are more focused on attacking, others on defense. You can unlock more mech squads by completing achievements, and the more mech squads you unlock, the more options that are available to you. You can even mix and match and make your own team of mechs. It's a strength because of the pure options that are available to you they're astounding. and the freedom that you have to experiment is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to see what works, but it's also kind of frustrating when it doesn't work. This is where the curse comes in. Let me explain. The game has a time traveling mechanic that if you lose the game, if you completely fail, you can select one of your pilots and restart the game. Basically, you don't keep any of the progress you made with the other 2 pilots, but you can also select and start off with any of the hero pilots that you collect from scratch as well. So in a normal and higher difficulty, I found myself going deep into games only to keep getting destroyed later on. It felt almost impossible to contend against certain maps, and it was incredibly frustrating for the first few hours that I put into this game because I had to keep restarting all over. Remember, it's all randomly generated, so because of the options and the potential thousands of combinations of mech teams and pilots that you could bring with you, on higher difficulty, any mistake that you make can cost you the game if you don't have the right team for the right situation. So not only do you sit there and you trying to map out every move before you make your first one, but even if you make all the right moves, a lot of times, because of the random nature of enemy and map placements, you'll basically have you beat before you move. It's incredibly brutal, which is why when I started playing on easy mode, that's when I really started to get into the groove of the game and actually started really enjoying myself. And I don't like to do that. I like to always try to beat. That's why I was getting so frustrated. I try to beat the game on normal mode because to me, that's the mode that the developers intended you to play it. Now, to be fair, the AI is brilliant, and I really do think that the game tries to always give you a way to beat it. But on higher difficulties, there could be a few factors. So let me list out the ones. A, I'm just bad at video games, which is entirely plausible. See, I can't even say plausible right. And the most likely scenario here, especially because I can't even communicate. B, matches have to be played in exactly the right combination of moves and tile placement. Or C, or wait, not just C. C, the devs made later levels on higher difficulty impossibly hard. So you have to grind playthroughs, get more mechs, get more pilots, and then you could go back and beat them. Or D, it's all random, so the odds of you having a squad that's able to beat your map is purely based on luck. The jury's still out because I'm still playing it. You know, I'm still putting a lot of time into it, but I'm hoping it's more A or C. I'm hoping I'm just bad at the game, or I just have to, you know, get better at it, play more of it, so that way I can go farther, or that the devs intended you to just do multiple playthroughs on easy or, you know, normal difficulty. That way you can get more unlockables, you get more mechs, you get more hero pilots, and that way you can make it farther into the game. Now, if that's it, that's fine. And if I suck at video games, that's fine too, which I probably do. But if it's the other two and it's just too many variables and it's just kind of a random number generator, you know, whether you win or lose, it's kind of frustrating to get that far, especially if you're like on a hard or normal and you get right to the last island. It incrementally gets harder each island. So by the time you get to the last one, you know, you spent a lot of time on that playthrough, on that timeline, just to get to the end, and just to have, you know, to lose is a little bit frustrating. But then again, this game I think is made for you to just play it over and over and over again, because the focus is on the gameplay. You know, it's if you're really gonna play it through, you can actually beat the game rather quickly, in the sense that you don't have to even beat all the islands to beat the game. You could just beat 1 or 2 islands, I believe, and you could go straight to the ending. So I think they built this with the idea that, yes, it's a little frustrating to lose, you know, especially on the higher difficulties, but you can also run through it rather quickly, and it's meant for, you know, basically just pure gameplay perspective. So it definitely achieves that. Despite its difficulty, I'm having an absolute blast with this game, which is it's a turnaround from when I started playing it. If you have ever enjoyed a turn-based strategy game, I highly suggest you pick this one up. Just be prepared for a real challenge. I'm giving Into the Breach a 9 out of 10. The good. Battles are fun. Custom teams. The bad. Brutal difficulty in higher settings. And the ugly. Getting bug juice all over your city. Yuck. Have you guys played Into the Breach? If you have, let me know your thoughts below. And until next time, later.